I tell you something that I think is I've referenced this, I don't know if it's a concept or notion before. And when I say it, some of you will have a bit of a reaction because you think I'm talking about something else, but I'll explain. There's something people experience called a red pill moment. I've talked about this before a couple times, probably in 2 years, of course. A red pill moment is similar to the Matrix, where you have the red pill, which is reality, and you have the blue pill, which is kind of, ignorance is bliss. It's fantasy. And if you can think of a time in your life where you had like a sudden realization, you thought things were one way, and then this something happens, and you just have a realization, and you realize like, wow, I don't think I was right at all. And you kind of have what's known as a red pill moment. It's like you took the red pill in the Matrix, and all of a sudden reality is very clear to you. Um, yeah, I guess life altering moment is pretty accurate. And I tell you, I've had a bunch that I could, and I'm sure a lot of you have, but I had one recently I thought was kind of interesting, and I want to share it with you only because I think one of the things that we're really good about, and particularly not just in live chat, but in the Discord, because we have the mental health bench and we have the rant channel, and I'm always wicked impressed with you guys supporting each other and encouraging each other. And also, you're very good about sharing your experiences, and I do love that we do that. That's kind of a real important part of the community, because even if I can't personally, like if I'm somebody in the mental health bench channel and I can't necessarily sympathize with your situation, sometimes even just clicking that little hug emoji is just a little something for that person. You know what I mean? That just kind of threw themselves out there and say, hey, this is kind of what I'm going through. And they might not necessarily expect a response or a reply or advice or guidance. They just kind of have to get it out. And I think that's really important. And I'm really grateful that Lulu put that together. Um, that was her idea to do that. And I think that has been pretty crucial for us. And I think that's been really good for a lot of you all as well. Because you think about it, when you put things down like that, it forces you to kind of make sense of it, right? You have to essentially take all of your thoughts that seem like madness, seem like chaos, and it kind of forces you to structure it in a way that's relatively concise so that other people will read it, will understand it, and you kind of have to choose the highlights of that situation and put it on paper. And in my opinion, that's kind of one of the things that, it's like the first step in kind of working through something, trying to structure it and make sense out of it, which is why people say, like, talk it out, like, hey, just talk it out. No big deal. Just go ahead, talk about it. It's fine. But I tell you what I kind of had recently that I thought was interesting was, back in my military days, because I was a Marine, and when you are a 17-year-old Marine, the Marine Corps and the military specifically, and I can't speak for any other country's military, but I'll just say in the U.S. Marine Corps, you are conditioned and trained very specifically for very specific reasons. And not all of them. Like, I want to make it really clear. A lot of you have your opinions about the military, and I'm not trying to change that, but I will tell you this. Some of you, when you think of Marines, you think of, the big bad guys and the angry, whatever. But specifically in my day, we were trained for what's known as a 3-block war. And that 3-block war was essentially the idea that within 3 city blocks, in one block, you could be in all-out combat. In the second block, you could be doing humanitarian efforts. right? And then the third block, something completely different. So it was always a matter of like, no, it's not just all the chaos that you see in the war movies. Sometimes it's you have to save people, you have to help people, you have to give food, you have to protect people. So anyway, all of that, like it was I thought like a Marine. I thought like a military guy. I thought like a 17-year-old, an 18-year-old American guy with not really much life experience, but being 18 years old and now I'm in the military and I got to kind of figure things out. They teach you what to think. So that's the longest way of me telling you that I had a very specific way of thinking. I was very closed-minded, and it was just kind of a, you're a machine, drive on, go. And that's it. Feelings weren't a thing. But as I got older and I got some more life experience and I traveled and I got some more life experience, there came a point, particularly when was in grad school getting her PhD in psychology, we had a lot of conversations about the human psyche and about psychology and kind of what makes people tick. And I love that stuff. So we would have a lot of long conversations about that. And I love I'm fascinated by the the human condition and what it means to be a person and all that stuff. And along that path, I started to open up to the idea of, and actually I can tell you, it was in 2017 when my dad passed. That's when I really started to kind of understand how important it was to kind of at least acknowledge how you felt about things, talk about it, and then kind of go from there. So the pendulum for me swung from don't think, just do, and it swung all the way to the other side. And then that other side for me was, here's how I feel. Why do I feel this way? Okay, what does this mean that I feel this way? What is this going to lead to? Does this cause a spiral? What does that spiral look like? You see what I'm saying? It's literally the other end of the spectrum for me. This is the pendulum has swung all the way over. So here's the red pill moment that I had recently. I kind of realized that in 2017 when I lost my dad and I kind of had to like figure out how to deal with that and how to process through that and be a functional adult again and kind of acknowledge my feelings and get them out and all that stuff. I kind of stayed there. I stayed with the pendulum stuck right here and that was it. So what does that mean? Why am I telling you this? Because I realized recently that that pendulum sitting on that spot has really hindered me in a lot of ways. There has to be a balance between just do, just go. Acknowledge your feelings, think about it, process it, but there's got to be a balance, right? For me, it's, how do I put this? Because I literally feel like I'm processing it right now. I'm not trying to bore you. I'm trying to make a relatable moment that I'm hoping will resonate with some of you. I liken it to this. I see life sometimes as like a difficult hike. You have everything you need, and some things you wish you had, right? You have everything you need on your back, on your backpack, and you have to hike this mountain. It's not always up. Sometimes it's flat. Sometimes it's down. It's plateau, whatever. But it's a long hike. That's life. Now, some people will put that pack on and they will just poker face and go. And that's kind of how I was at 18 years old. Some of you can understand this. Some of you live this way now. Some people will take all the items that are in this pack. They'll walk a mile. They'll take that pack off. They'll dump everything out, and they will examine every little thing that's in that pack and whether or not they need it. How did they get it? Does that belong with this? Well, where did that, you see what I'm saying? Like, it becomes a whole different journey to like stop where you are and then kind of figure out where to go. And some people will stop in that one spot and never move again. And I think that's kind of where I landed. For me, that red pill moment was figuring out that I needed to kind of like have a balance between sometimes it doesn't matter what's in that friggin' bag, bro. Toss that shit in there and go. You'll get some time, but like we need to go right now. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I wish I had that drill instructor beside me saying, hey, I don't care what you feel right now. I need you to go. This is bigger than you. It's more important than you. Go. And you just say, roger that. You put all that shit back in the bag, you throw it, and then you go. And then at some point, when it's time, you can stop, take off that bag, take a breath, and you can kind of reevaluate. But my red pill moment was kind of knowing that there has to be a balance between those two. Yeah, that's actually a really good point, Thelma. I hadn't thought of that. It reminds me of the big naughty MV. You remember the one that we watched? He was inside the shopping cart. Is that the one you're talking about? And then he kind of made his journey, and at the end, he was kind of teaching the kids, was my interpretation. That's the one I'm thinking of. Was it Hopeless Romantic? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so, with all of the people that I've talked to over the years and all the stories that I've heard and read and all this stuff, I will tell you that I think and I'm not saying you, I'm not saying me, I think it's a we thing. I think we need reminders sometimes that sometimes you just have to get up and go. And I will absolutely tell you this is a very hot take that a lot of people will not like to hear, and maybe it doesn't apply to you, but some people do need to hear it. Sometimes, in some moments, your feelings do not matter. They don't. It sucks to hear that, and it sucks that that's the case, but life is bigger than you sometimes. And you have to just be like, all right, roger that. And I just drive on. And you get through something, and then when it's time, okay, now we can get there. Now we can kind of process things. But to sit in that moment of like, it's always this, it's always it's always about how you feel. It's not. It's 100% not. I have lived in that space for years now, 9 years. And it's only recently that I was like, you know what? That's not true. And for 9 years, I told myself, I need to acknowledge how I feel. Why do I feel this way? What caused it? And it's a friggin' spiral. Balance is the key. Balance is the key. Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually a good point, Mia. I want to make it really clear, and Mia just said it perfectly. It's important that you do go back and deal with those things. 100%. You have to. Right? I can tell you firsthand, and I'm using the analogy of the backpack and the hike and all that, because as a Marine, that's what we do. We carry everything we own on our back with guns and ammo and all the stuff and everything. It's 80 pounds on you, and you're in leather boots, and you just go for 20, 25 miles or whatever. If you don't stop at specific points and like, change your socks and drink some water and have a little bite to eat and like take care of yourself, you are not going to make it to the end. You're not. You have to stop, adjust, acknowledge some things. Okay, fix this, modify this. And there's going to be times where you make a pit stop, you do what you can real quick, and then you just keep going. And for that next leg, it's going to suck. It's going to be terrible. But then when you get to the next one, you're like, okay, I got a little more time. Now I can readjust. And the next leg is like, okay, this wasn't too bad. Okay, it's still rough, but I'm hanging in there. And sometimes you just do the best you can, you know? Yeah, but you absolutely have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I will absolutely tell you something that I know 100%. I talked to somebody today about this at the um, wake. I was talking to a friend that's very similar to me, and I said, bro, you and I are very, and this is somebody I hadn't seen in a long time, so it was nice to catch up with him. And I said, bro, I had a little bit of a red pill moment recently, and I talked about it. And he said, I actually had a similar experience, and we kind of exchanged stories. And I said to him, bro, you and I are very similar in the sense that we will fight to the death for somebody else's boundaries, but we won't set them for ourselves at all. And he was like, yeah. He's like, that's what ruins me sometimes. So that kind of sparked this conversation. And in this conversation, something hit me and I was like, oh, yo, I think this is something that people need to hear. And it wasn't that part about boundaries. Like, I know that's something that a lot of people need work on. I need to work on it. Like, I get it. But specifically, it was, I'm trying to think of how to frame this, because one of you just said something. Where was it? One of you just said something that reminded me of it. Oh, there it is. Yes. Some of you, you know what? I'm in this boat too. So some of us, it's like we make it our job to take care of everybody else. And then here's what happens. And some of you will be like, yo, how did you know that? Like, you didn't know that's a thing? I'm going to call you on it right now. You end up spending all of your time and energy and taking care of everybody else. You don't take care of yourself. And then you get to a point, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, maybe even physically, you get to a point where you kind of hope that something, how do I want to put this? You kind of hope passively that something happens to you, right? Not that you die per se, but like something happens to you and then people have to take care of you. And then it's like you have an excuse for people to take care of you. Now, I know this doesn't resonate with everybody, but I know it resonates with some of you. For some of you, you're like me, you're a born caretaker. And that's a role that you've probably you've played most of your life. But what that does as you play this role is like, it puts you in this like conditioned path and you just end up going through the motions until one day you're completely dysfunctional mentally and emotionally. You don't know how you got here and you don't know what the hell to do about it. And you feel stuck, right? Well, that's where the boundaries come in. But that's not a healthy place to be. When you get to that point where you're like, you know what? I want to be taken care of for once. Is that so bad? No, it's not. It's not so bad. And that's part of the conversation was about boundaries, because it's not until you learn how to set boundaries that are you really going to see any difference. If that makes sense. And I'll tell you, like, in the past few years, I'm 43 years old, right? got some life experience. The past few years, it's like that first time that you set a boundary and you stick to it with somebody, you're worried that they're going to leave you forever. When you tell somebody no and you stick to your boundary, like, hey, I understand. I know you're in a rough spot. I can't help you. I can listen to you. I can support you, but I can't save you. That's a tough place to be. And you think the world is going to collapse around you. And when you realize it doesn't, it's kind of a moment where you're like, oh, huh. Okay. And then you take out all the stuff in your backpack, you set it out, you readjust, and then you move on. That's what life looks like. I mean, I think in metaphors and analogies, and some of them will go over your head and you have no idea what I'm talking about. But I know there are some of you, and if there's even at least one of you that's like, yo, speaking my language, well, I think we've done our job. Yeah, fairy wings, that's exactly right. You set a boundary and you feel like you're the evilest thing on the planet. Yep. Yeah. It's a tough spot to be. And sometimes it doesn't work out. I remember being in a really, really bad place a few years ago, and I kind of set some boundaries, and there were people in my life that did not accept those boundaries. They either tried to push them or they said, "Oh, that's how it's going to be. I need you and you're going to abandon me?" Well, no, I'm not abandoning you. I have to tell you no. And they kind of distance themselves. Well, that sucks initially, but guess what? They just gave you a whole bunch of information that you should have had a long time ago. And while it's difficult in the moment, it kind of helps you in the long run. People kind of filter themselves through your life sometimes. And boundaries are a really good way to do that. You find out who's going to be there with you for the long haul. You are the evil one in the end, and they make you feel this way, and going through this is really hard. Mo, you're right. It is really hard. And people do try to make you feel that way. But remember, though, I will tell you this. You have control over how you react to that. If somebody in your life is trying to make you feel like shit about yourself, they're wasting your time and energy. You have a choice on whether or not you believe that. You have a choice on whether or not you acknowledge that and say, you know what, they're right. I am an evil person. Bullshit. Bullshit. Don't give somebody power over you like that. Call your shots. Take your space. That's one thing I used to talk to friends about sometimes that I'm really guilty of. It's like I always I'm in public places. Like, you look at me, I'm a pretty big guy. You know, I'm not worried about things popping off. I'll be all right. But like I go into a public place and I feel like I'm in everybody's way. Like I'm inconveniencing everybody else. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my God, bro. Until one point I was like, you know what? I got every right to be standing where I'm standing like that dude does right there. Like she does right here. Why am I any different? Why do I have less value than everybody else in this damn store? Again, I had to call bullshit. So I had to make the call. You know what? I got my space too. I got my bubble. My bubble moves around with a purpose. Take up your space. It takes time. It takes practice. It takes reinforcement. It takes a lot of failure, but it's worth it. And I say it's worth it because all the time that I spent with the pendulum over here and sitting and wallowing in my feelings. And it's almost like you want to figure out all of the perfect answers and all of the right things to do. Okay, if I get all this, I'll never make a mistake again. I'll never upset anybody ever again. I'll figure out everything perfectly and then I can move on. Nope, waste of time. Because guess what? As soon as you take that one step, there's a chance something's going to go wrong. And you take another step, there's a chance something's going to go wrong. So the best thing you can learn how to do is adapt. Be flexible. Learn how to deal with change. Learn how to deal with shit flying at you. It's worth it. Being flexible. Life lessons, man. Tell you what. Yeah. Yeah, there is no perfect. There is absolutely no perfect. It's nonsense. And one of the real bad things about social media is that we get to see everybody's ideals. You know, we get to see everybody's life is perfect. Everybody's got perfect skin and perfect hair and their house is so beautiful. It's all bullshit, right? We live in this world of just comparing ourselves to everybody else. And I'm just as guilty. I'm trying to be a hypocrite. Yeah, filters. Yep. The same way that we kind of started off things with the highs and the lows. You try to think about that every day. You know, what was your low? And then what was your high? I think it's at least a good start to put you in this mode of acknowledging that today wasn't just a low all day. There was something positive to it. Try to find that positive. And you're going to have days where you mess everything up and it's just one of those days. It's just one of those days. It happens. We got to drive on, right? I am eternally grateful for those of you, especially like namely, and there's a bunch of it, and I'm not going to remember everybody because there are literally so many of you, and that makes me so happy. But specifically, I will call out Joyce and Thelma. So Joyce, you know, of course, and you have One Old Crow, which is Thelma, are so good about being voices of experience. And we'll jump into the Discord or even in the live chat and be like, I have been where you are, and it sucks. You're going to get through it. I got through it. You're going to get through it too. It sucks right now, but you're going to get through it. I love that. That's a voice of experience. And that's the passing of a torch almost. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you. I mean, nothing goes unseen. That's a good one, Mia. Robert Frost. Of all the things I've learned about life, I can sum it up in 3 words. It goes on. Yep. Stop saying sorry for everything. Yeah. Yeah, I was really guilty of that too. Thanks, Furchy. And that's that. I am glad that I went live tonight. I'm glad that we could hang out and watch some Ron and have some soju and listen to some tunes and hang out. I'm grateful that I have this, and I'm grateful that I have you guys, and I'm grateful that time and time again you show up. Yeah. Oh, that's really good, Steph. I love that. Hey, Mo, here's one for you because you just said, well, what if most days are like this? So Steph just says, if you feel like you're losing everything, remember, trees lose their leaves every year, yet they still stand tall and wait for better days to come. Perfect. I love it. Meg, good luck with your French Film Festival. And I'll tell you guys, I know you're grateful for me, and I'm very grateful for you, and I know you're grateful for the community, and you're grateful for the Discord and live chat and the streams, and I appreciate that. But remember something, okay? One thing I used to say was, when I would end live streams a few times, I'd say, I hope you leave better than when you got here. And I hope that's the case always. But remember, though, that part of the community aspect is that when you leave, make sure that you also keep a balance of reciprocation. Give some hugs. Compliment somebody. Spread the joy. If you find yourself stuck in this pendulum over here of like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm upset, every day sucks, this is a nightmare, this is horrible, this ain't gonna move. Like, you're stuck here. There's a chance you're stuck here, and what you need to do is slap this thing and so it goes over here, and you go, I'm driving on. Like, tomorrow when I wake up, nothing is going to ruin my day. I'm going to be tested. I'm going to drop my toast on the carpet. It's going to land face down so the friggin' jelly and butter is stuck in the carpet. I know it's coming. I'm ready. Nothing is going to ruin this day. I'm going to get an offender bender at lunchtime. I can feel it. It's going to come. It's not going to ruin my day. Let life test you. Make your choices. Call your shots. Take up your space. It's not easy, but you have control. You have more control than you think.